A rich man screams at an old janitor, accuses him of theft, and throws him out in the cold. No proof, no mercy. But just when all hope seems lost, his 10-year-old son uncovers a truth that changes everything. You won't believe what happens. Next, before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Get out of my house, thief. The silence shattered like glass.mr. Grayson's voice ripped through the warm, elegant air of the grand living room, making the chandelier tremble ever so slightly. The room, bathed in golden light and polished to perfection, had never seen such rage erupt within its walls. Joseph stood at the threshold, framed by the ornate arch of the hallway. His old, weathered hands gripped the wooden handle of a broom he had used for the past 12 years in this very house. His shirt, faded and frayed at the collar, hung loosely from his thinning frame. His eyes, kind, weary, and full of quiet dignity, were now shimmering with tears. "I didn't steal anything, sir," Joseph said softly. His voice, though shaky, carried the weight of sincerity. "I've always treated this house like my own." Mr. Grayson stormed forward, his polished black shoes pounding against the marble floor. He was a tall, sharp-featured man in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Joseph earned in a month. His face was red with fury, his eyes wild with accusation. "Don't lie to me, old man," he barked. "The watch is gone. My father's watch. The only thing I had left of him. And you were the only one near my room this morning." Joseph blinked. His lips quivered. "Sir, I clean every room in this house. Always with your permission. I saw nothing. You think I wouldn't notice?" Mr. Grayson roared again. "You think I wouldn't know when something that important goes missing?" At that moment, the tension in the room was so thick it could be sliced with a knife. And in the corner, standing behind one of the velvet armchairs, was Ethan, Mr. Grayson's 10-year-old son. His large brown eyes were wide with confusion and fear. He clutched a toy car in his hand, frozen, watching a man he'd known since he was in diapers being torn apart by his father's fury. Ethan had always liked Joseph. The old janitor had been more like a grandfather to him than anyone else. He remembered the stories Joseph told while sweeping the backyard, the way he fixed his broken toys without ever asking for thanks. Joseph always had a piece of candy in his pocket just for Ethan. He always smiled, even when his back hurt, or the day was long. But now, there was no smile. There was pain. "I swear to you, Mr. Grayson," Joseph said again, barely able to speak through the lump in his throat. "I would never betray your trust. I've worked here since before Ethan was born. I've always been loyal to this house." Mr. Grayson wasn't listening. His judgment was already made. The pain of losing the watch, that last gift from his late father, clouded everything else. He saw only betrayal, only loss. And in that blindness, he lashed out. "You're done," he spat, pointing a shaking finger at the door. "Get out, now, before I call the police." A heavy silence fell. Joseph looked at Ethan. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something wordless, but deep. Joseph nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping under the weight of the accusation. He bent down, picked up the worn-out leather bag he had left by the wall, and walked quietly toward the front door. No yelling, no argument, just a quiet, heartbreaking walk of shame. As he passed Ethan, the boy whispered, "I don't think you did it." Joseph paused for a heartbeat. He turned his head slightly. "Thank you," he whispered back, managing a weak smile. "Always. Listen to your heart, Ethan." Then the door creaked open and closed behind him. Outside, the winter wind cut through the night like a blade. Joseph pulled his thin coat tighter around him and started walking down the long, winding driveway, the one he used to sweep clean every morning before sunrise. Now, he walked it as a man cast out. Inside, Mr. Grayson poured himself a glass of scotch, his hands still shaking. He didn't see Ethan slip away toward the hallway closet. He didn't notice the way the boy's small hands were already searching, already questioning what his heart had told him was wrong. Something didn't add up, and Ethan, young as he was about to start looking for the truth, because deep down, he knew Joseph was innocent. What triggered this outburst? Earlier that morning, the air in the Grayson mansion was as calm and quiet as ever. Sunlight filtered through the high windows of the master bedroom, glinting off polished wooden furniture and velvet curtains. Mr. Richard Grayson sat at his desk, flipping through a pile of investment reports while sipping his morning espresso. Everything was routine. Until it wasn't. He opened his top drawer to retrieve something he hadn't touched in months, his father's watch. But it wasn't there. At first, he thought maybe it had shifted under a folder. He pulled everything out, one item at a time, growing increasingly frantic. He checked the desk, the shelves, even the side tables. Nothing. The watch was gone. A small, elegant piece. It wasn't flashy. Its face was scratched, and the leather strap had cracked over the years. But to Mr. Grayson, it was priceless. His late father had worn it every day, at board meetings, family dinners, even on his deathbed. It was the only thing he had left. Of him. It wasn't insured. It didn't need to be. It had never left that drawer. Until now. Richard's stomach dropped. His fingers trembled as he stood up, scanning the room for any sign of it. His pulse quickened. Then he heard it, the sound of sweeping. Just outside his bedroom door. He swung the door open and found Joseph. There, broom in hand, quietly cleaning the hallway like he did every morning. That was all it took. Panic turned into suspicion. Suspicion twisted into rage. It had to be Joseph. He was the only one who'd been near the room. No visitors had come. The maids were working downstairs. The security system hadn't recorded any intrusion. And Joseph? He had keys to every room. He moved freely through the house. He had access. Mr. Grayson's mind didn't ask for proof. It didn't want logic. It wanted justice, now. But what he failed to see, blinded by emotion, was the deeper truth. Joseph had been a loyal servant in the Grayson household for 12 long years. A man who never asked for a raise, who never complained, who took pride in mopping floors and wiping down windows as if the mansion belonged to him. Because, in a way, it did. It was part of his world. Joseph wasn't just an employee, he was family, at least to young Ethan. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Joseph as Uncle Joe. He was the man who gave leftover food to the hungry, who helped the elderly cross the street, who spent his evenings repairing toys for the neighborhood kids, free of charge. He never missed Sunday service at the church around the corner, never had a single blemish on his record. In fact, he'd once found a guest's diamond bracelet under a couch and returned it, untouched. But none of that mattered. Not to Mr. Grayson. The pain of losing something so personal, that watch, had flipped a switch inside him. Grief turned to fury. And that fury needed a target. Someone to blame. Someone who couldn't fight back. Someone beneath him. And Joseph? He was the easiest option. The evidence didn't exist. But neither did doubt in Mr. Grayson's mind. His judgment was already made. And with the kind of cold, corporate resolve that had made him a millionaire, he chose to act. He stormed downstairs, seething. He found Joseph finishing up near the living room, humming an old gospel tune, completely unaware that the next few minutes would change everything. And then came the explosion. "Get out of my house, thief." The words didn't just echo through the marble halls, they stabbed into Joseph's heart. In seconds, the trust of a dozen years vanished like mist. Mr. Grayson didn't ask questions. He didn't offer a chance to explain. He just accused at no cameras. No witnesses. No investigation. Just a rich man's pride and an old man's broken dignity. What Mr. Grayson didn't realize, what he couldn't see in his anger, was that in this moment, he wasn't just throwing out a janitor, he was throwing out a piece of his son's childhood. A man who had been there through birthdays, scraped knees, bedtime stories in the hallway, and quiet advice when Ethan was scared. A silent protector. A quiet guide. And though Joseph didn't protest, though he walked out with bowed head and quiet grace, something else had stirred in that moment. Ethan had seen it all, and Ethan wasn't convinced. Ethan's silent investigation that night. The mansion felt colder than usual. The warmth of the chandeliers, the plush carpets, and the glowing fireplace couldn't stop the chill Ethan felt in his chest. He lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling while his father's harsh words echoed again and again in his mind. "Get out of my house, thief." But the look on Joseph's face, that wasn't the face of someone who was guilty. It was the face of someone hurt, betrayed, and humiliated. Ethan had known Joseph all his life. The old man had watched him grow up, patched up his scraped knees, fixed the broken leg on his favorite toy robot, and once even taught him how to whistle. Joseph was always kind, always calm, always honest. And that look in his eyes, That was heartbreak, not guilt. That Ethan's mind raced. Something didn't add up. And then, out of nowhere, a memory hit him like a lightning bolt. Kyle Point 2 days ago, his best friend Kyle had come over to play. They were messing around in his dad's study, pretending to be spies, when Kyle found the watch on the desk. "Whoa," Kyle had said, picking it up carefully. "This looks old and expensive." "Yeah," Ethan had replied. "It was his dad's. He barely lets me touch it." "I want one just like this," Kyle had whispered before setting it down. Ethan sat up in bed, wide-eyed. Could it be? He slipped out of bed and tiptoed down the hallway. His heart thumped in his chest with every step. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer. First stop, his father's room. Ethan creaked the door open and stepped inside. The drawer, still empty. He sighed and quietly shut it. Next, Joseph's cleaning closet. Ethan had seen the spare key in the kitchen drawer earlier that evening. He grabbed it and walked slowly down to the utility hallway near the garage. The old wooden door to the closet loomed ahead. It hadn't been opened since Joseph left. He inserted the key, holding his breath. The lock clicked. The door swung open. With a quiet groan. Inside, the space was neat, exactly how Ethan expected it. Shelves lined both walls, holding folded towels, bottles of cleaning solution, and neatly stacked rags. A faded mop leaned in the corner. The air smelled faintly of lemon and old books. Ethan scanned the shelves. Nothing unusual. Then, his eyes fell on a small notebook sitting on the middle shelf. That he picked it up. It was Joseph's journal. Flipping through it, he found scribbled entries in careful handwriting. Polish dining table. Feed stray dog behind fence. Buy soap. Pray for Mrs. Carter's recovery. One page read, "Today, Ethan smiled after I fixed his robot. He's growing fast." Ethan smiled faintly. This was the Joseph he knew. He kept looking. On the top shelf sat a wooden box. Ethan reached up on his toes and pulled it down gently. Inside, he expected to find something hidden, maybe the watch, but it only held some cleaning brushes, extra gloves, and then something caught his eye. A small, crumpled paper bag was from Patterson's Bakery, a place Joseph never went. Joseph was diabetic. He always told Ethan that sweets were his enemy. He never ate from bakeries, but Ethan knew someone who did. Kyle. Kyle loved Patterson's Bakery. His mom bought him chocolate croissants from there every time he visited. Ethan had seen the same bag in Kyle's backpack more than once. His heart started racing. This wasn't proof, but it was strange. Why would a bag from Patterson's be in Joseph's box? Unless someone else had been in the closet. Ethan's hands tightened around the bag. His eyes scanned the closet again. Everything else was in order. Only this small detail, this bag, felt out of place. And then it hit him. Kyle had come upstairs to get water that day. Alone. He could have slipped into the room, taken the watch, hidden it somewhere. What if Kyle panicked when Joseph came around the corner with his broom and had stashed the watch somewhere quickly? Maybe even in Joseph's closet? Or worse, maybe he took it with him. Ethan's thoughts spiraled. He had to find out the truth. He couldn't let Joseph suffer for something he didn't do. Not when he could feel it in his gut, in his heart. That Joseph was innocent. Holding the paper bag tightly, Ethan turned and walked back to his room. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure. He was going to find out the truth, no matter what. The shocking reveal the next morning, Ethan didn't eat. He barely spoke. He sat across from his father at the grand marble breakfast table, staring at his untouched eggs while the sunlight streamed in through the tall windows. Mr. Grayson read the newspaper with his usual calm. But Ethan's mind was anything but calm. Finally, he set his fork down and took a deep breath. "Dad," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Mr. Grayson looked up, half interested. "What is it?" Ethan told him everything. About how Kyle had admired the watch, about how he remembered the exact words Kyle had said, about sneaking into Joseph's cleaning closet and finding that bakery bag. He even showed him the bag itself. "I don't think Joseph took the watch," Ethan said firmly. "He didn't even eat from that bakery. Kyle does. He must have been the last one to touch it." Mr. Grayson sighed and shook his head, setting the newspaper down. "Ethan, he's an old man. You're just a kid. You don't know how the world works. People lie, even when they seem nice." "No," Ethan said, his voice rising just a little. "Joseph doesn't lie. You've known him for 12 years. You kicked him out without proof. You just assumed. Mr. Grayson's face hardened. You're emotional. That man had access to every room in this house. I don't need a camera to know what happened. But Ethan didn't give up. With quiet determination, he pulled out his phone and texted Kyle. Door with a grin, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. Hey, ready to? Yeah. Ethan cut him off quickly. But before that, remember, my dad's watch. The one you said you liked. Kyle froze. Ethan continued casually. Did you ever take it? Maybe by accident. Kyle blinked. What? No. I mean, I just touched it that day. It was cool, but I didn't before he could finish. Mr. Grayson stepped into the room. Arms crossed. Watching. Go on. He said that Kyle's face changed instantly. His shoulders tensed. His gaze darted from Ethan to Mr. Grayson, then down to his backpack. Mr. Grayson's eyes narrowed. Without a word, he stepped forward, gently but firmly grabbed the bag, and opened it. Inside, buried beneath a science textbook and a crumpled hoodie, was something that glinted in the morning light. The jeweled watch, wrapped in Kyle's hoodie like a hidden treasure. Silence filled the room. Even the air felt still. Kyle's lips trembled. I just wanted to borrow it. I swear I was going to give it back. I didn't think anyone would notice. I didn't mean to, but the damage had been done. Mr. Grayson stood frozen, staring at the watch in his hands. The color drained from his face. His jaw clenched. His mind raced back to the night before, the way he had shouted, the look on Joseph's face, the broken sound of his voice, the way he walked out without even trying to defend himself, that he had accused a man, no, a friend, without evidence, thrown him into the street, publicly humiliated him, all in front of his son, and now, standing here in his $1,000 suit, watch in hand, he felt like the smallest man in the room. Kyle sniffled. I didn't mean to get him in trouble. I didn't think anyone would believe me if I told the truth after you blamed him. I got scared. Mr. Grayson looked at him but didn't say a word. Instead, he turned to Ethan. For the first time in a long while, his voice was quiet, almost ashamed. You were right. Ethan nodded, but there was no joy in his expression, just quiet sadness. I want to bring him back, Ethan said softly. He doesn't deserve what you did to him. Mr. Grayson looked down at the watch. In his hand, suddenly heavier than gold. Neither do you, he murmured. Without another word, he pulled out his phone. I'm going to fix this. Because for the first time, Richard Grayson, the powerful man who thought he knew everything, realized that truth and integrity don't come from suits, money, or titles. They come from the people who do what's right, even when no one's watching. And Joseph had done that for 12 years. Redemption and a second chance. The cold morning wind brushed against Joseph's thin coat as he sat alone at the bus stop, his hands cupped around a lukewarm bottle of water he had bought hours ago. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows across the pavement. He hadn't slept all night. He had replayed the moment he was thrown out of the mansion, not just fired, but discarded, as if his 12 years of loyalty and care meant nothing. He tried not to cry again. But something about being old and accused stripped a man of pride more than poverty ever could. Then came the hum of a slowing engine. Joseph looked up to see a sleek black car pulling up in front of him. The door opened. Out stepped Mr. Grayson, dressed in a dark coat, but without his usual presence of authority. He wasn't standing tall or commanding the world around him. He was humbled, quiet, human. Behind him stepped Ethan, holding something carefully in his small hands. Joseph's brows furrowed. Mr. Grayson didn't walk forward. He didn't talk down to the man he had shamed. That he knelt, right there on the concrete. He lowered himself in front of the man he had thrown out like garbage the night before, and with his voice shaking, he said the 3 hardest words a man like him could ever say. I was wrong. Joseph blinked, stunned. Mr. Grayson continued. He told Joseph everything. About the watch, about Kyle, about Ethan's suspicions, and his own pride. He admitted that his fear had turned into rage, and that rage had blinded him. He didn't excuse it. He didn't soften the truth. He owned it. I judged you unfairly, he said. I accused you in front of my son. I betrayed someone who's been nothing but loyal to our family. And for that, I'm sorry. He then reached into his coat and held out a white envelope. I want to offer you your job back, he said. A place to stay in the guest house. And something for the pain I caused you. But Joseph didn't reach for the envelope. He looked down, silent for a long moment. Then he looked up into Mr. Grayson's eyes and said quietly, "I forgive you." The words were soft, but they cut deeper than any shouting match. "I don't need charity," Joseph said. "I just needed someone to believe in me when it mattered." Mr. Grayson's eyes welled up. He nodded, pressing his lips together to stop the emotion from spilling out. Ethan stepped forward and extended the cup he had been holding. A steaming cup of tea, Joseph's favorite kind. Not bought on the way. Made at home, just the way Joseph liked it. 2 sugars, 1 drop of milk. "I believed you," Ethan said with a soft smile. Joseph looked at the boy, the only person who had seen through the noise, who had trusted his heart when no one else did. Slowly, Joseph's expression softened. His hand reached out and took the cup. His fingers shook, from the cold, from the pain, or maybe from the unexpected warmth of being seen again. He took a sip. It warmed his throat, but more importantly, it warmed something inside him that had grown cold. And for the first time in what felt like years, Joseph smiled. Not a small one, a real, full smile. The kind that starts in the eyes and spreads across the soul. From that day forward, Joseph did return to the mansion, but not as just the cleaner. He was given a private room, full respect, and a standing place at the dinner table. More than that, he became something else entirely. He became the guardian of Ethan's heart, a mentor, a friend, a quiet protector who showed the boy how to see people, not just appearances. And for Mr. Grayson, Joseph became the man who humbled him, who reminded him that wealth doesn't always buy wisdom, and that the poorest man in the room may carry the richest truth that Mr. Grayson would later say, "Joseph didn't just clean our home, he cleaned my heart." And as the seasons passed, their home wasn't just grand, it was grounded. All because of one boy who asked a question and one old man who never stopped telling the truth, even when no one was listening. Sometimes, the truth isn't what it seems. Don't judge people by their position, their age, or their appearance. Because even the smallest heart, like a child's, can see what the richest man cannot. If this story touched you, like, comment, and share. And always believe in kindness.